You're about to discover the secret spot on the male body that will make him madly in love with you when you're sharing a moment of intimacy. And no, trust me, it's not what you think. Carl Jung discovered it after studying 500 men over the course of 20 years, yet this information remained hidden in his private archives until today. We're about to embark on an archaeological expedition into uncharted territory of the male body. I will be your experienced guide, and you will be the brave explorer. Get ready to uncover hidden treasures that 99% of women don't even know exist. Welcome to the first zone of our secret map. We've just entered the most misunderstood area of the male body, a zone that all women touch, but almost none truly understand. Your first discovery will shake everything you thought you knew. The most powerful spot on the male body is not where you think it is. Not where the movies, magazines, or your friends told you it would be. It's located in a zone you touch every day, without even realizing it. Carl Jung called this zone the bridge between body and soul. It's the point where the physical and emotional meet and create a connection that goes far beyond mere pleasure. And guess where it is? On the neck. Yes, you heard that right. The male neck. But I'm not talking about a romantic caress or a gentle kiss. I'm talking about a precise technique that Jung observed to be devastating to the male psyche. Carla, 52 years old, wrote to me after using this discovery. I don't know what happened, but when I touched Maurizio on the neck in that particular way, he looked at me as if he had seen a ghost. From that moment on, everything changed. He became more loving, more present, more in love. This is the secret Jung had discovered. On the back of the male neck, exactly where the hair begins, there are nerve endings directly connected to his deepest emotional center. It's not just an erogenous zone, it's a gateway to his vulnerability. But be careful, there's a very specific way to touch this point. It's not a random stroke. Jung observed that you must use your fingertips with light but deliberate pressure, making small clockwise circular motions. The touch must last at least 30 seconds, otherwise the neurobiological connection won't activate. Marco, married for 10 years, confessed to me, "When my wife touches my neck that way, I literally become clay in her hands. It's like a door opens inside me that I never even knew existed." What truly makes this technique powerful is the moment you choose to apply it, not during peak arousal, when he's already focused on intense sensations, but during gentle moments of intimacy, when you're cuddling, when he's relaxed and vulnerable. That's when the magic happens. His brain links that unique feeling with the sense of safety and love he experiences with you. It's no longer just physical attraction, it becomes emotional imprinting. Lucia told me, "I did it while we were watching a movie. We were just lying on the sofa. I started touching his neck the way you explained. After a minute, he turned to me, eyes full of tears, and said, 'I love you so much it almost hurts.'" It was the first time I'd ever heard him speak with such intensity. But wait, what I'm about to reveal about the second secret zone is so powerful that I've seen women receive marriage proposals after discovering it. And let me warn you, it's located in a place you definitely underestimate. But first, you must understand why the first zone is so effective. Jung had discovered that the male neck is connected to the vagus nerve, the nerve responsible for the nervous system's relaxation response. When you stimulate it properly, you're not just giving him pleasure, you're literally reprogramming his nervous system to associate peace and comfort with your presence. That's why men who experience this technique develop what Jung called positive emotional dependence. It doesn't mean they become weak or submissive, and it simply means they can no longer imagine life without that deep sense of peace that only you can give them. Roberto wrote me an email that brought me to tears. It's hard to explain, but ever since my wife started touching my neck this way, it feels like she has the key to a secret room inside me, a room where I'm allowed to be vulnerable without shame, where I can just be myself without a mask. And the most beautiful part, this technique works regardless of a man's age, personality, or past. Jung tested it on men aged 20 to 70, introverted and extroverted, romantic and pragmatic. The result was always the same, deep and immediate emotional connection. But now that you've discovered the first treasure on our archaeological map, it's time to dig deeper. The second zone we're about to explore was considered by Jung to be the key to the male soul, and it's in a place that hardly any woman ever gives enough attention to. And if you didn't know about these secret zones of the male body, subscribe to this channel. Every day we reveal hidden maps of the male psyche that no one else dares to share. Carl Jung discovered that at a man's wrists, energetic lines intersect, lines that have been known in Eastern medicine for thousands of years, but are still underestimated in the West. And I'm not talking about superstition, I'm talking pure neurobiology. The male wrists are interlaced with nerve pathways directly connected to his emotional system. But Jung's real discovery was this: when a man's wrists are touched in a certain way, it activates what he called the memory of childhood abandonment. Sounds complicated, let me make it simple. Every man, even the strongest and most independent, carries within him the memory of a time when he was just a little boy, longing for unconditional love and security. This memory is buried deep in the subconscious, but the wrists are the direct key to it. Anna, one of my students, told me, "I always thought Alessandro was made of ice. 15 years together and I had never seen him truly vulnerable. Then I tried the wrist technique you taught us. He broke down in tears. He said he felt loved in a way he hadn't experienced since childhood. But be careful, this technique cannot be used randomly. Jung observed that you must first create what he called the circle of intimacy. Here's how it works. When you're in bed, after sex, or during a tender moment, gently take his wrists into your hands. Don't press, don't massage. Simply wrap your fingers around his wrists like human bracelets. The magic happens when you maintain this contact for at least 2 minutes while breathing together. This sustained touch activates the primitive part of his brain that feels completely safe, protected, and unconditionally loved. That's why I developed the Love Destiny quiz. In just 7 questions, it reveals the path your love life is likely to take out of thousands of possibilities. It's completely free. You can take it at wifeless.it or simply comment quiz and I'll send you the direct link. But back to our archaeological expedition. Giorgio, 60 years old, a seemingly rational and reserved man, confessed to me, "When my wife holds my wrists that way, it's like I become the little boy I used to be, the one I had long forgotten. I feel completely calm, completely loved." The science behind this technique is fascinating. The wrists are crossed by the radial artery, which carries blood from the heart to the hands. When you apply gentle pressure to the wrists, you slightly slow the blood flow, triggering a deep sensation of calm in the brain, which it interprets as absolute safety. But Jung had made yet another astonishing discovery. Men who experienced this technique regularly developed what he called the refuge imprint. Their brains begin to associate your physical presence with the feeling of being protected from the outside world. Claudia told me, "It's incredible. Since I've been using the wrist technique, Andrea has completely changed. He used to be constantly tense, always stressed because of work. Now, when he comes home and I hold his wrists, he seems to melt. He told me, 'You've become my happy place.' But there's one crucial detail you need to know. This technique doesn't work if he's nervous or distracted. You must wait for natural moments of intimacy when you're both relaxed. Only then can his brain form the correct emotional link. Timing is everything. Jung had observed that the wrist technique is most effective when a man is in a state of emotional vulnerability, not when he feels confident and strong. Marta told me, "I tried it one evening when Paolo came home, especially tired and down. As he told me about his hard day, I took his wrists in my hands. It was incredible to watch him transform from an exhausted man into a man in love." And what's special about this zone is this. It creates emotional attachment without control or manipulation. The man doesn't feel dominated, he simply feels loved in a deeply unique way. And that's exactly why he will keep coming back to you for that feeling. Federico admitted to me, "It's strange, but now I miss it. If my wife doesn't touch my wrists during our cuddles, it's like that feeling has become necessary for my emotional well-being." But wait, because now we're entering the third zone on our secret map, and it will shake all your previous ideas about male anatomy. It's an area no woman ever takes seriously, yet Jung identified it as the center of emotional control. And once you discover where it is, you won't believe your eyes. But before we get there, I want to share one last discovery that deeply moved me. Jung found that men who regularly experienced the wrist technique became better at expressing their emotions, not because they became more emotional, but because they finally developed the ability to express what they had always felt. Sylvia told me, Maurizio was never good with words of love. In 20 years of marriage, he might have said, I love you 10 times. But since I've been using the wrist technique, it's like he's thawed emotionally. Now he tells me beautiful things, feelings I never even knew he had. This happens because the proper touch of the wrists also activates neural connections linked to emotional communication. It's as if you're literally opening locked channels through which long-suppressed feelings can finally flow. But now it's time to move on to the third secret zone, the one Jung considered the most powerful of all, but also the most sensitive. It's an area that can instantly create emotional attachment, but only if you know how to touch it correctly. We have arrived at the heart of our archaeological expedition. The third secret zone we're about to explore will shatter everything you thought you knew about male anatomy. It is the point Jung identified as the center of emotional control, and it's located somewhere that will surprise you. Get ready, because we are now entering the most unexplored territory of the male body, the lower back. Yes, right there, in the lumbar region. But I'm not talking about a relaxing massage or casual strokes. I'm referring to a precise technique that Jung developed while studying male anatomy. The male lower back is laced with nerve pathways that connect directly to the primitive emotional center. Jung discovered that this area contains what he called the code of the vulnerable alpha, the key to the deepest and most hidden part of his personality. Every man, even the gentlest and most sensitive, carries within him a primitive part that tries to control emotions in order to appear strong. But the lower back is his emotional Achilles heel. Elena wrote me a letter I still keep to this day. I applied the lower back technique you taught me. Marco, who hadn't cried in front of me once in 10 years, was moved to tears. He said he felt emotionally naked, but in a good way, as if he could finally be completely himself without any masks. But caution, this technique is incredibly powerful and must be used with great sensitivity. You must not apply it randomly or at inappropriate times. Jung observed that the lumbar area should only be stimulated in deep moments of intimacy, when he is completely relaxed and trusting. Here is the exact technique Jung developed. After you've had sex, while you're cuddling and he's in a state of emotional openness, place your open hand on his lower back, directly above the sacrum. Do not press, do not massage, simply keep your hand still in that spot. The warmth of your hand on his lower back activates what Jung called the reflex of total surrender. His nervous system interprets this warmth as a signal of absolute safety, and all of his emotional defense mechanisms fall away completely. Antonio, 50 years old, an accountant, a man of few words and many numbers, confided something that deeply moved me. When my wife places her hand on my back like that, it feels like someone opens a dam inside me. I feel an unstoppable urge to tell her everything I feel, all the fears I hide, all the dreams I never dare to speak. But the real magic happens when you leave your hand there for at least 5 minutes. Jung observed that in the first 2 minutes the man relaxes. In the following minutes he begins to open up emotionally, and after 5 minutes he reaches the state Jung called total transparency. In this state, the man is emotionally completely honest. He cannot hide his feelings, he cannot lie. It's as if you've found the switch to his emotional authenticity. Carla told me, after I kept my hand on Ricardo's back for 10 minutes, he looked into my eyes and said things he had never told anyone. He spoke about his childhood, his deepest fears, and how he truly sees me. It was the most intimate conversation we'd ever had. But Jung had made another extraordinary discovery. The male lower back is linked to his protective instinct. When you stimulate this area correctly, you don't just reach his vulnerability, you also awaken his deep desire to protect you and love you forever. It's as if, through this touch, you're unconsciously saying, "I'm here for you. You can fully trust me. I am your safe haven." And he responds to that message with deep, instinctive love. Julia told me, "Since I started using the lower back technique, David has become incredibly protective of me, but not in a possessive way. It's like he feels a deep inner urge to take care of me. He treats me as if I'm the most precious thing in his life." But what truly makes this area special is that it creates what Jung called the soulmate imprint. When you apply this technique regularly, the man's brain begins to associate the feeling of emotional wholeness with your physical presence. You literally become his natural drug, the one that makes him feel complete. It's not dependency in a negative sense. It's the unconscious recognition that in you, he has found the person who holds access to the deepest parts of his soul. Marco confessed to me, "It's incredible, but when my wife isn't around, I physically miss her hand on my back. It's like a part of me remains incomplete without that feeling of warmth and security." But be careful, because there is one crucial aspect of this technique you must know. The lower back should only be stimulated when he is emotionally completely bare. If you try it while he's distracted or has his emotional walls up, it won't work. Jung observed that the perfect moment is immediately after orgasm, when the man is in a state of peak biological vulnerability. In that moment, his brain is literally reprogrammable, and your hand on his lower back can create lasting emotional bonds. Stefania told me, "I did exactly what you explained right after sex. Roberto was completely relaxed and vulnerable. When I placed my hand on his back, I felt his whole body melt. He whispered, 'Please never take your hand away again.' But what we are about to discover in the fourth zone will leave you speechless. It's an area Jung kept secret for years because it was too powerful. A zone that can instantly create emotional dependence, but only if it is stimulated with absolute precision." Before we go on, I want to share one final discovery about the lower back. Jung had observed that men who regularly experienced this technique developed what he called absolute emotional loyalty. Not because they felt obligated, but because they could no longer imagine experiencing that sense of emotional wholeness with another woman. Francesca wrote to me, "My husband travels a lot for work and is constantly surrounded by beautiful and interesting women. But ever since I started using the lower back technique, it's as if he's emotionally immune to temptation. He told me that no other woman could ever give him what I give him." That is the true power of the lower back. It creates such a deep emotional imprint that a man naturally becomes monogamous, not out of duty, but from an unconscious choice. He seeks in other women the feeling that only you can give him, and because he doesn't find it, he always comes back to you. But now it's time to dig even deeper in our archaeological expedition. The fourth zone we're about to explore, Jung considered the sanctum sanctorum of male intimacy. And once you learn what it is, you'll understand why some men become completely obsessed with certain women. Welcome to the most secret part of our expedition. We are now entering the sanctuary of male intimacy, the area Jung studied for years before he understood its true, devastating power. Get ready, because what I'm about to reveal will forever change the way you perceive the connection between physical and emotional intimacy. The fourth secret zone is located on his feet. Yes, you heard me right. The male feet are the most precious and least explored treasure map of the male body. I know what you're thinking. Feet? Are you serious? I completely understand. I was skeptical too when I first discovered this research from Jung. But then I began to experiment, and the results left me speechless. Jung discovered that the male feet contain what he called the code of voluntary surrender. I'm not talking about weakness or loss of dignity. I'm talking about the ability to completely open oneself out of love, to willingly show vulnerability to one person in the entire world. The feet are the part of the body that constantly touches the ground, that carries the entire weight of the man, that symbolizes his stability and strength. When a man allows you to touch his feet in an intimate way, he is granting you access to his deepest control center. Lisa wrote me an email I still keep to this day. I thought Matteo was a man who could never truly be conquered. He always kept a part of himself hidden, a small inner resistance. Then I tried the foot technique you taught me. Something magical happened, and he surrendered to me completely with body and soul. But be careful, this is not a casual technique. Jung observed that the wrong kind of touch on the feet can be counterproductive. You must follow a precise protocol that he developed while researching the anatomy of male trust. Here is the secret technique that Jung perfected. In a moment of deep intimacy, when you are both completely relaxed, gently take one of his feet in your hands, not like a relaxing massage, but as if you were holding something precious and fragile. The key lies in your inner attitude. You must touch his feet with the same respect and tenderness you would show when holding a newborn baby. Jung found that a man unconsciously senses the intention behind the touch, and only if he feels genuine reverence can he lower his deepest defenses. Start by gently massaging the sole of his foot with your thumbs, slow, deep, circular motions. But the true magic happens at the arch of the foot, that soft area in the middle. Jung discovered that this spot is directly connected to the most vulnerable emotional center. When you stimulate the arch of the foot with the right pressure, firm but gentle, you activate what Jung called the reflex of total surrender. The man enters a state of such deep vulnerability that he becomes emotionally completely transparent. Andrea, 45 years old, a successful attorney, a man used to being in control of everything, confided something to me that shook me deeply. When my wife touches my feet this way, I become like a child. I can't hide anything anymore. I can't pretend to be strong. I feel completely in her power, but strangely, it's the most liberating feeling I've ever experienced. But Jung made yet another extraordinary discovery. He found that the foot technique doesn't work unless the man fully trusts you. It's like an unconscious, absolute test. Only if he feels completely safe with you can he allow himself to be that vulnerable. That's why this technique should only be used when a stable emotional intimacy has already been established. It should not be used at the beginning of a relationship or during moments of tension. It is reserved for the deepest levels of love. Marta told me I had to wait 2 years before I could use the foot technique with Paolo. In the beginning, he tensed up, had unconscious resistance, but when our relationship reached a level of absolute trust, he finally let go. It was incredible to witness his transformation. What truly makes this zone special is its long-term effect. Jung observed that men who regularly experienced the foot technique developed what he called soul dependence. They can no longer imagine a life without that feeling of total surrender, a feeling only you can give them. You quite literally become his emotional home, the only place in the world where he can fully be himself, without masks, without defenses, without fear of judgment. Roberto confessed to me, "It's hard to explain, but when my wife massages my feet this way, it feels like I'm finally coming home after a long journey. It's the only moment when I can completely shut off my brain and surrender to pure emotion." But there is an even deeper dimension to this technique that Jung discovered. Touching a man's feet with reverence and love doesn't only activate his vulnerability, it also activates his deepest protective instinct toward you. It's as if his primitive brain thinks, "This woman is touching the most humble part of my body with pure love. She is special. I must protect her and love her forever." Sylvia wrote to me, "Since I started using the foot technique, Giorgio has become incredibly devoted, not in a submissive way, but in total surrender. He treats me like a queen, and at the same time feels free to be vulnerable with me." But Jung made yet another discovery that left me speechless. He observed that the foot technique creates what he called a power reversal. Paradoxically, the man feels stronger precisely because he can afford to be weak. It's as if he thinks, "I am so sure of her love that I can show her my weaknesses." That makes me the most powerful man in the world, because someone loves me as I truly am. Francesco confessed to me, "Before I met my wife, I always had to prove I was strong, invincible, perfect. Now, thanks to our deep intimacy, I know I can be vulnerable with her without losing her respect. Paradoxically, that's made me far more confident in the rest of my life. But what we are about to discover is the fifth and final zone of our archaeological map, and it will take your breath away. It is the zone that Jung kept secret throughout his life, a zone he explored only with a few selected men, an area capable of creating an emotional bond so deep it borders on the spiritual. Before we move on, I want to share one last discovery about the male feet. Jung observed that this technique works especially well with men who carry great responsibility in life, managers, professionals, fathers. The more weight a man carries daily, the more he needs a place where he can lay that burden down. His feet symbolize everything he carries day after day. When you touch them with love and reverence, you are unconsciously saying, "I see how much you carry. I know how strong you are, but with me you can rest." Laura told me, "My husband is the CEO of a large company. He carries hundreds of responsibilities and constantly makes decisions. But when I come home and massage his feet, I see the strong man transform into a child who just needs tenderness. It's the most beautiful moment of our day." And now the moment has come to discover the final treasure of our expedition. The fifth zone, what Jung called the gate to eternity, the zone capable of creating an unbreakable connection between two souls. We have arrived at the most important moment of our archaeological expedition. The fifth and final secret zone we are about to explore is what Jung called the gate to eternity, the point on the male body capable of creating a permanent soul bond between two people. Get ready, because what I'm about to reveal is the deepest secret Jung ever uncovered about human intimacy. It is an area that has nothing to do with traditional sex, but instead creates a spiritual connection so intense that it forever transforms the nature of your relationship. The fifth secret zone is on his forehead. Yes, exactly there between the eyebrows, at the point Jung called the third eye of the soul. It is where spirituality and intimacy meet, where physical love turns into a cosmic connection. I know it sounds unusual, but stay with me. Jung discovered that a man's forehead holds the center of his deepest identity, what he referred to as the higher self. It is the part of him that lies beyond the ego, beyond all social masks, beyond what he thinks he is. When you touch a man's forehead the right way, you don't just reach his emotional vulnerability, you touch his spiritual essence, the part of him that is eternal and unchanging. Maria wrote me a letter that changed my life. "I used the forehead technique you taught me. What happened afterward surpassed all my expectations." Luca started to cry, but they weren't tears of sadness, they were tears of recognition. As if his soul had recognized mine, he told me he felt completely whole for the first time in his life. But be careful, this is the most delicate and at the same time the most powerful technique of all. Jung observed that touching the forehead is like entering the sanctum sanctorum of his soul. You must only do it if you are ready to take responsibility for that level of intimacy. Here is the secret technique Jung developed during his years of research. In a moment of absolute intimacy, when you are both emotionally and physically bare, gently lean your forehead against his. It is not just physical contact, it is what Jung called the union of souls. You must press your forehead against his like two magnets, firmly, deliberately, but full of love. The magic happens when you hold this contact for at least 10 minutes, breathing together, looking into each other's eyes, allowing your souls to recognize one another through this spiritual bridge. Jung discovered that forehead-to-forehead contact activates in the male brain what he called the memory of original unity. It's as if the man returns to a primal state of perfect connection with the universe, this time shared with you. Antonio, a doctor, a man of science used to thinking rationally, made a confession that shook me. "When my wife places her forehead against mine, I feel things I can't explain scientifically. It's as if I can see the whole universe in her eyes, as if we've always been one, artificially separated by time and space." But Jung made yet another incredible discovery. The forehead technique doesn't just create spiritual intimacy, it creates what he called shared destiny. The man begins to feel that his life is inextricably linked with yours. This is not about possessiveness or dependency. It's about the deep realization that your souls are complementary, that together you are more than the sum of your parts. Julia told me, "Since I started using the forehead technique, Stefano talks about our future in a completely new way. He no longer says, 'I will,' or 'you will.' He always says, 'we will.' It's as if, on a cellular level, he understood that we are one unit with two bodies." What truly makes this zone special is that it creates what Jung called the memory of eternity. When two foreheads touch in the right way, a spiritual imprint is formed that transcends this life. That's why Jung proposed the theory that some souls immediately recognize each other when they meet, because they shared this forehead-to-forehead experience in a past life, and their recognition is instant. Carla told me, "The first time I used the forehead technique with Marco, he said something that gave me chills. I feel like I've always known you, as if we loved each other in another life." In that moment, I knew we had created something eternal. But be warned, this technique has a side effect you need to be aware of. Jung observed that men who experience this forehead union develop what he called absolute spiritual monogamy. They can no longer imagine sharing this level of intimacy with any other woman. You literally become the only person in the world with whom he can feel spiritually complete. Roberto confessed to me, "It's strange, but ever since I've shared this experience with my wife, all other women seem incomplete to me, not in the sense of being unattractive or boring, but in the sense that I could never reach that level of total connection with them." But Jung had one final discovery, and I believe it's the most important of all. He observed that the forehead technique transforms love from a feeling into a state of being. You no longer love someone, you become the embodiment of love together. That is the true power of the fifth zone. It turns you from two people in love into one loving entity expressed through two bodies. Francesca wrote me the last email I received about this technique. "I don't know how to explain it, but ever since David and I have been practicing forehead union, we no longer feel like two separate people who love each other. We feel like pure love that has taken shape in two human forms to experience itself. It's the most beautiful and complete feeling I've ever had." Our archaeological expedition into the hidden territory of the male body is now drawing to a close. We slowly resurface, bringing with us all the treasures we've discovered together and a complete map of intimacy that can change your relationship forever. You have uncovered 5 secret zones that 99% of women don't know about. The neck, which opens the gate to vulnerability. The wrists, which activate the memory of childhood abandonment. The lower back, which reveals the center of emotional control. The feet, which allow for voluntary surrender. The forehead, which unlocks the gate to eternity. These are not mechanical techniques. They are keys to levels of intimacy that go beyond the physical and emotional into the spiritual dimension of human connection. Carl Jung dedicated his life to studying these dynamics because he understood that true love isn't based on personality compatibility or physical attraction. True love is soul recognition. It is the merging of essences, the creation of a higher being through absolute intimacy. Now you hold the complete map to guide your man into depths of closeness he may not have even known existed.